Keith Jones.
Rick!
I think today we're going to talk about waffles and chicken.
You're talking about waffles and chicken. No, I'm not.
I didn't eat lunch, man, so I got on the brain.
No, I'm not talking about it. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, buddy.
Good,
How you
man.
doing?
Good to see you, man.
Always great.
Always great. So I thought today's show we would talk about would be about the hidden cost of not working on yourself.
Why do you call it hidden, though? Why isn't it like overt? What is it about being hidden that makes it so bad?
I think what the reason I mentioned hidden is because we're not always conscious that it's present. And I think when we give some examples of what the hidden costs are in our own lives or have been in our own lives, that the audience or you out there may be able to relate to what we're talking about.
That's a great idea.
I think the examples will help really define what I mean.
I don't have any examples, though, so I'll just sit here. I'll hum politely as he goes through his repertoire.
Okay. Hopefully some of my examples will inspire one or two to come from you.
Well, that may happen.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
I'll give you that.
Okay, so the hidden costs are, for me, have been, for example, when it's come to finances, right? So in my mind, I know, like, I don't have this whole thing about scarcity when it comes to money. I think there's enough to go around. But I have, been somewhat stressed about, man, am I going to have enough money to make the bills and things like that, to meet my bills? And so that's been present for me. But I think that I only think about, money or needing it to pay bills. I only think about it when it's the first of the month and the rent is due for our studio space, or I've got to pay the mortgage. That's when I think about it, when there are bills due. But so that's a conscious cost to this idea of, having enough money to meet my needs. But the hidden costs are around me the other 29 or 30 days of the month, and they're there all the time.
The hidden costs about worrying about money and scarcity.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if I would just address the money issue and put myself on solid footing, which I've done over the last 2 or 3 years, then I'm not stressed or concerned about money at all any of the time. But because I didn't do that, or I made this idea that it was more that, money is going to be a concern and issue, that the pain of it was, the suffering around it was present all the time. So here's an example.
Okay.
So an example is, the first of the month comes and goes, you think like, okay, I'm gonna shut it off, I don't have to worry about money for another 30, 40 days, another 30 days. Not true. I'm worried about it all the time. And it comes up when I go into a store and I see a piece of clothing that I want to buy. My first thing is I'm looking at the price tag. Even if it's on sale, whether or not I can afford it, it shows up there. When I go out to dinner, I'm considering, or go out to lunch, I'm considering whether or not what's the most affordable entree on the menu that I can afford that also meets my nutrition goals. So I'm thinking about it there. And so it just keeps going on and on and on, that every time I'm confronted with it, I go to the mailbox, or I stay away from the mailbox because of what may be in it. It may be another bill that's unexpected, or it may be the electric bill, or something like that. I'm always thinking about it, or a letter from the IRS. Are all the lights in the house turned off before I leave because I don't want the electric bill to be higher? It's hot in Arizona, Can I keep the temperature at a comfortable level that feels great, or do I have to raise the temperature up a little bit higher for the air conditioning so that I can have an idea of what the cost is going to be? Like, it's all over the place all the time. I'm concerned about money instead of doing the work and being disciplined and setting a budget, sticking to a budget, putting money away in investments and savings and things like that. And then it becomes super easy. So an example for some people may be with their weight. And so there is this cost of, that is a small cost, I wouldn't even say it's a cost, it's an investment in getting up early in the morning and going to work out.
Okay.
then it's over for the rest of the day. You got up in the morning, done it the first thing, it's over. And then you can start to be in the process of getting your health to where you want it to be at an optimal level. And you can also, have a body that you absolutely love having, looking at.
Or at least trying to get it.
Yeah, trying to get it. Exactly, the process of getting there. So you can do that one and done in the morning and 5 or 6 times a day, for the few minutes that you plan your meals. But if you plan your meals early in the day, you plan them one time, you just eat what you said you're going to eat, and then it's all done. Or you can resist that, saying that that's too hard. But what's harder is the constant chatter in your head, the constant dislike for your body, for your health, being dissatisfied with it, and in some cases, the self-hate and disgust about your body or your physical state. And when does that show up? All day. So you didn't get up to go work out. You're beating yourself up for that. You get in the shower. You're trying not to look in the mirror at your body because you don't like the way it looks. Every time you move, it's creaking and you're aching and you're hurting. So you're upset about that. You're reminded about it every day that, you're not in great health or your optimal health. You go to put clothes on, you look in your closet and I can't wear this anymore, this doesn't fit. So the cost up is there all day. You get on the elevator at work. You're wondering about, you see other people that may be in better shape than you are, and you're comparing yourself to them, feeling even worse about where you are with your physical state. So it just shows up all the time, but every day, but we ignore it, but it's present all the time. But if we make that investment in just setting a plan to eat, follow the plan, and a fitness plan of getting up early in the morning, getting knocked out, we only think about it once or twice a day. Whereas the other way, you're thinking about it all the day. Yeah. So that's the hidden cost of not working on yourself in a physical sense. Can you give an example?
I will in a minute, but I want to touch on something else before we get there. First, the 2 examples that you selected are really powerful. One is the idea of money. Of always having that feeling that it's not under control for you, right, and that you're a lesser person for it. And the second thing has to do with our own self-esteem related to how our body looks. Well, both of those are changeable. And so the things that we're talking about in terms of hidden costs, we're really talking about things that you have the control over, but the tension is between wanting to have a better body, wanting to have more money, wanting to be able to be free of this feeling like you're not coping very well,
right,
and your reality of not doing anything about it. So the first thing I think I'd like to mention is that the only way change works, I think, for human beings is when you realize that the benefit of what you want becomes much more powerful and much more real to you than what you are experiencing now in terms of your lack of money or your lack of fitness.
Right. So you mean like when you feel like where you want to go is more powerful and compelling than staying where you are.
Yeah, and the payoffs, you have to focus on, okay, why do I want all these things? You list all of the things out. That you have to have leverage on yourself. That payoff has to be stronger than the idea of staying where you're at. It has to be more painful to stay where you're at than it is to go forward. Now, when you couple that with the notion of the hidden cost, a lot of people aren't awake to it. A lot of people aren't aware of what is troubling them. They don't understand that a lot of their anxiety comes from wanting something different than the way they are.
Right.
I'll give you an example in my own case. One of the things that I try to watch a lot of right now is I'm going through a period where I realize the blind alleys that ego takes you down. For example, trying to compete and be better at something than somebody else instead of just doing your best and then letting the universe decide who the winner is rather than you trying to make sure you got your thumb on the scale and getting the victory. So I'm focusing more and more on letting go of not talking about myself, of not putting myself as the star of the show all the time. And that has resulted in me having a lot more people enjoy being around me.
Right.
And in turn, they're not as, I would say critical, but not as interested in becoming one up on me either. So there's sort of a balance that comes by virtue of just letting go. So ego for me is a big deal right now, trying to get rid of that as much as I can. And the hidden cost of not getting rid of it is that you're always run by trying to be better or trying to be more this or more that than anybody else, which nobody likes.
Right.
Who wants to be around a guy like that, right?
And that's a hidden cost that you can't see. But
It-
everyone else around you feels it.
And they know it.
Yeah.
And they know. And they talk and they say, if only Rick would get his crap together, he'd be a decent dude. Thanks
Right.
for sharing that, by the way. I appreciate it. It's really helped me.
It's a blind spot, man.
That's right, I know.
You didn't see it, I saw it. And, I've been waiting for 10 years to tell. You finally opened the door. I've been working on patience, and it's paid off.
How small can one person feel on camera? This is about it, right here. This is it. I'm 2 inches right now.
That's right.
I'm not talking anymore.
Humility is a virtue. Stay humble.
If only I'd find it.
That's right.
Thanks, man.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
So there are other hidden costs too of, as you mentioned, are open the door for letting go.
Yeah.
And the people that live in the past, like so. I can be upset about a past experience where my ego has told me that I've been wronged, I've been hurt, I've been betrayed. But what's the cost on holding on to that? And it's a huge cost. I mean, so I get to talk about it, I get to live in the space of victimhood, but there's hidden costs of it too. And the most important part of the hidden cost or the most significant is I miss the present moment.
Yeah.
Because I'm living in the past and I'm bringing it with me in my present. I'm projecting it out in my future of my interactions with other people, my experience of life. So there's a cost to that. And I really see it in relationships with people in breakups. So you see it in breakups with people with their divorce, whether it's a divorce or just a committed relationship. And because they say that the former partner was unfaithful or that they were not like I wanted them to be or hardworking or whatever the case may be, weren't loving, whatever the case may be, they bring that with them. They tell the children about it. And they may not say it directly, but it's in their complaints, in their conversation, and how they talk about their ex-partner. And then they strap that onto the children and their experience of life. When they're around their friends, they're talking about how awful things are, he or she was, and it just continues. But those are the hidden costs of it. It robs you of experiencing all of the juice, as you say, that life has to offer. All the goodness and the joy and the love and the fun times that are there because you're stuck in the past, and that's a hidden cost of it. It robs you of living for today. And that's all we have is this present moment.
That's it. That's the living unit of your life. It's not the future. It's not the past. It's this moment right now. And it's like this all the time. It's now, it's now, it's now. And that's all that counts. And
Absolutely.
You can't get a hold of that somehow. Well, that's a great example because that's also another important theme about the need to be right versus the need to let things go and just live your life. I think one of the things too that makes it difficult for people who are not awake to this is that they don't know themselves very well.
Right.
They don't know really what they want. They really haven't gotten an idea. They maybe see some things, but they're not clear on why it is they don't have them. I think part of that comes from just trying to react and be the perfect fill-in-the-blank wife, spouse, mother, whatever it might be. By fulfilling a role, you're really creating a mask for yourself where you're not really getting in touch with what you want. Now, I'm not saying that people who are wives and mothers and so forth, spouses, can't be real. I'm saying that when we're numb to the idea of what we want and we're only fulfilling a role for somebody else, you're hollow. You're a mask, and there's nothing behind the mask. Eventually, if you do it long enough, you wake up and it's like the quote from Tolstoy in The Strange Death of Ivan Ilyich, which you have this accountant who lived this very vanilla, plain life, didn't take much risk.
Right.
He's on his deathbed, and the story is about the last few minutes of his life. And he looks up to the narrator of the story and says something like, "What if my whole life has been wrong?"
Right, exactly. Exactly.
He's hollow. There's something that he's missed because he wasn't living his life. So I guess part of this notion is that we need to get in touch with what we really want and understand why we want it and understand that there's a cost to it. It's not free. If you want to be somebody who's fit, if you want to be someone who is strong and a leader, you can't, it's not a wish. They're not passing it out at the Circle K, as Keith used to say. Yeah, you got to invest in it and do the work.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And and so there's a cost of not working on yourself. I mean, Tim is and we keep mentioning Tim because he's such an inspiration to us, but he went through that divorce and he's happier now than he's ever been because During that process, he read some great books to get him through divorce. He read Spiritual Divorce by Debbie Ford. You know, he listened to Wayne Dyer. You know, and so, you know, 5-6 years later, man, he's happier having the time of his life with his kids. You know, he talks about how he spends, you know, they have joint custody, you know, with both parents having half time with each kid, I mean, with their kids. And he's maximizing and having quality time, even more than before, because he worked on himself in a way to see that, so that he wouldn't succumb to the hidden costs. And so now it's just been, so that those years that he spent working on himself were an investment, so that the costs were minimal coming out of the divorce. And a lot of people, you know, have a challenge with that. You know, I'll give one quick example in a professional experience that I had. I was in the financial services industry, and the company that I was affiliated with, we went through a legal battle, and I felt one way about it. They felt another way about it. You know, in the end, I was, you know, I won the whatever it was to win, and there was some financial reward for that. But for the 4 years that we were going through this legal situation, there was a cost of me not living in the moment. You know, when is it going to be resolved, and you know, and I've got to do this deposition, and we've got to get all of these materials together to prove our point of view, our case. Man, I was just losing, and the people my friends were only getting a portion of me. My significant other at the time, she was getting a portion of me. It just wasn't fair, and I was missing out on a ton of life by doing that. And the same thing happens with, you know, parents. You know, the kid goes off and starts their own family, and you know, the mom or dad feels like, man, what's my role again? Because like you said, they've identified themselves with the role, or there's a loss of a child, or you go through a divorce, and who am I anymore? And you live in the past of what once was, and just all those things. So the hidden cost of not working on yourself, that you are not the role that your ego wants to identify and box you into. You're greater than that. You're more than that. And so I think working on yourself is the most important thing you can do, physically, mentally, emotionally. Not trying to get somewhere, but just trying to be better.
And for others.
And for others.
And to be there for others. So if you're into the role that you're playing, you're going to be a better mother, spouse, lover, husband, whatever, when you figure out what it is that works for you, what it is that is your life force that you have the particular spin on. That's the beauty of life, really, when we're all blessed with the idea that we can literally self-create. We can literally decide what we want to do. There are consequences for that. Don't get me wrong. There are consequences for being eccentric, for example. But there are also consequences for not doing anything that is maybe a little risky. The real, Tim Ferriss said something I thought was interesting in a podcast. He said something like, we build strength based on the number of difficult conversations we have.
I believe it.
And I think that's true. A lot of what we want out of life is going to require not only hard work, but being an outsider, being someone who's not liked, being eccentric, being a little bit off the mainstream. Are you willing to pay that price? If you are, there's an entire richness that's waiting for you on the other side, because that is really who you are.
Right.
And it's different for everybody. Everybody's
Right.
got a little different take on that, but we're all entitled to pursue that.
Right.
And even if it means isolating others who are supposed to be our supporters. One other thing I wanted to mention.
Oh, and those difficult conversations, just because they're difficult doesn't mean they're unloving and kind, right?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means that it's just, hey, I can't do this anymore with you, or here's the reason why this isn't working, or my life is not about this, and we're in this, and I need to move from that. And you may have major consequences as a result of that. But consequences, those difficulties, are the things that make life rich and also give your life back to yourself.
Right.
Seneca, another one of Tim Ferriss's guys that he likes very much. Seneca was probably 300 BC, but he's a philosopher and a Stoic. And the notion that he supports almost every one of the ideas of Stoicism starts with the notion that the most challenging thing for you to do is to walk through the fire and not complain. So you have a set of things that you want to do for your life. There's a cost to doing them. You can either walk away and be like everybody else, or you can walk through the flame, find out who you are, arrive on the other side, and save yourself all the hidden costs
Right.
of not being true to your own heart.
I totally agree with that. You know, I think, you know, to what you said earlier, is really understanding what your why is will help you focus on working on yourself more and not be focused on what's outside of you or things from the past. Be really about, like, so if your children are super important to you, then who do you want them to grow up to be? You want them to grow up to be successful and loving and compassionate. Then work on yourself to be loving and compassionate, not just with your children, but how you treat others, how you treat your significant other or your former spouse or partner. How you treat them really matters, and that kind of investment, otherwise those hidden costs are going to be significant. And I talk to people all the time that they look back and their children may be a certain way, and they can look back and find the blinders are off, and they can see how they influence their child's current behavior. Maybe they were workaholics and worked too much, or they were negative in their conversation, or they're enough chatter, or it's negative self-chatter, they beat themselves up, and the child takes this on, and the parent is finally able to look at it and see, like, man, I contributed that. Those are all hidden costs that you may not see when you're going through that, but once you become wise to it, you can start working on yourself. If you're not in the optimal shape and fitness and health, there are things that you can do about it right now. They're completely controllable. So you can be like, hey, I'm spending a lot of my time with my kids. I'm dropping them off at baseball practice or volleyball practice, and I'm playing, I'm watching them. How about getting out there and doing some volleyball service with your child, and stuff like, because you take care of yourself. It's great to watch and observe and give feedback and encourage them, but it's a whole lot more fun to be in the arena, right, baby?
It's true. It's true. Get out of the stands and get in the game. It's true. And Gandhi said something along the same lines, which is basically, if you want to change something, if you want something really, really bad for yourself, be that change.
Yes.
Be the change. Don't just simply write lists to yourself about all the characteristics that you admire. Be it.
Right.
Go out there and try it on.
Right.
One last footnote, I think, on this too, and that is that life is a moving target, and we always forget that once we get to, some point, everything goes away. All the problems go away. If only I could get divorced, man, everything would be cool. And then, if I could only get remarried and find the love of my life, everything would be great.
Right.
It's never great. It's always gonna be something else. You never get to the point where all your problems go away.
And that's why you better love the process.
That's the process. That's your life. That's the
Yeah.
process.
You love it.
It's what is it? Somebody
Appreciate
said,
it.
Yes, John Lennon said something like, "Life is what happens when you're making other plans."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it, man. Live it and love it. Be eccentric. Be mindful of your own dream, of your own fruition of your creative life, whatever that is for you, whatever it is. And people who don't like it, too bad. They
Right.
get to vote for their lives. But the hidden cost of not dealing with things that you want to do is a big, big problem, and it'll haunt you until you get it handled.
Exactly. And if you practice gratitude, which is a key component, that will help a lot in dealing with the hidden costs and minimizing them, exposing them, minimizing them, dealing with them, and then moving forward powerfully. There are a lot of people that their whole year of living is all about getting to that next vacation. But man, there are a ton of days and weeks and months until that vacation that they're not taking care of themselves. They're not working on themselves to get somewhere else, and then it's over like that.
You could make those days and weeks and months actually a vacation if you change your attitude about it.
Speak! Speak, baby!
Time for hot dogs. We gotta run.
You know what? But seriously, you know what? You complain about the traffic, driving.
Yeah.
That traffic can be a mental vacation on the drive home.
Or you could have books on tape.
Books on tape, baby.
Yeah, cool. I love you, man.
Speak, baby. I love you, man.
Thanks, guys, for coming by.
This guy's cooking. Thank you, baby. I love you, man.
I love you, too.